Hello guys, it's Amber. Welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're new here, welcome to the Madhouse. If you're not, then thank you so much for returning. So week 1 was a Q&A and week 2 was the things that I have learned in the last year since my official diagnosis, if you like. So this week I thought I would cover something that a lot of people talk to me about and message me about, and the thing that kind of struck a chord with a fair few people in the first episode. So today we are going to be covering telling people that you're struggling. And I don't mean just mentally, I don't mean just telling people that you're finding it hard, I mean telling people in general that you are struggling to get pregnant. I think this topic is quite, for me it was one of the hardest parts of the entire journey, and it was actually telling people that I was struggling or telling people that I was infertile. It's not the kind of conversation that you have every day, and I think it's really not an easy thing to tell people, but at some point you have to tell someone. It's not something that you necessarily have to announce to the world like I have done. However, it is something that you do have to say, whether it be your parents, your friends. At some point that conversation is going to be needed. So that is what I'm going to cover today. I am a bit hormonal today. I have been for about a week now and it's driving me mad. So one thing that I say we, really this is quite a single man job, that single man being me. I need to kind of regulate my periods when ready for the IVF, and I don't know, for the last, I say I need to, I don't need to as such, but for the last 6 months since I had my fallopian tubes removed, I have been regular as clockwork. Like, for the first time in nearly 10 years, I have had a regular cycle that has lasted anything between 28 and 31 days at a push. And this month I seem to now be on day 36, and it's starting to drive me crazy because since about day 25 I've just been a hormonal mess, and every night I've gone to bed thinking, yeah, I'm gonna come on tonight, I'm gonna come on tonight, and I haven't. And today I just feel a bit, I've had a really, really lovely day today, but I just feel a bit down. I can't really explain it, but all I want to do is sit in the bath, listen to a bit of Celine Dion and cry my eyes out. That's all I want to do, just sob, and I don't even know why. But I don't know, I feel like it's all got on top of me a little bit today. I think no matter how positive you are, I think every now and again you just have those days, and I think especially when it comes to my period, when I'm actually on my period, like that day 1 I get a bit upset because it just reminds me that it just means I'm not pregnant. And I think especially when I'm late, when everything has been so regular, now when it's not and when it's just playing up, it just kind of reminds me that there's something wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, I think 90% of the time now I am so positive about the whole situation, but just every now and again it really gets me down. I said a barrel, so you can have hormonal, emotional me as well. So grab yourself a cup of tea, let's get cosy, and we will talk once again all things vagina. Hello, hope you've got your cup of tea, hope you're sat on comfy. I am gonna try and not make this video as long as the last 2. I know the other 2 have been about 40 minutes each, and that's just because I have so much to say. But I am going to try and make this one a little bit shorter. I'm not promising because I talk for England, but I'll give it a go. This week we are talking about telling people that you're struggling. I think the first point is, so in my previous video I kind of covered how I didn't tell anyone really that we were even trying, like not family wise really, until we started having investigations, because I think it's quite a personal thing, and I don't know, we just didn't. with some people, like, you know, people do generally say to you, or especially when you get married, oh, when are you going to be having children, and things like that. And you kind of just, I don't know, do you sit there and say to everyone, oh, we've started trying? Is it something you tell people? I suppose for some people, yes, it is. But for us, it just wasn't. It just wasn't something that we did until we needed to. And even then, it was only that we were having some tests, and it was just because things weren't right with me. Like, obviously, my family knew that I really struggled with my periods and I got really bad pains, and that they were really irregular. Like, that was kind of something they knew. But the fact that we were having fertility investigations probably came as a bit of a shock to them. And part of me thinks, okay, maybe I probably should have told them before we started going through the hospital, but I didn't feel the need to. I didn't feel the need to kind of say, oh, by the way, we're having sex. Like, it just, I don't know, I just didn't feel the need to. So we didn't. So when it comes to infertility, I don't think you really need to tell anyone until you're ready, but I do think you need to talk to people. And whether or not you actually, especially if you are going through IVF, you do have a bit of a dilemma as to whether or not to tell anybody at all when you're going through it. I think some people do. Some people are very open about it, and some people like to tell their family that they're going through the IVF, etc., and when their collection is, when their transfer is, so on and so forth. Whereas we have said that we aren't going to do that. And although I'm sharing everything about this journey, it's one thing that I won't share until after we've done it, because I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. Nobody knows how they're going to deal with it until they're doing it. If you don't get the result you want, it's more people to tell. And it's more people asking questions. And I think if we were trying and people knew we were trying, I wouldn't walk into work, or I wouldn't go to my mum's house or my dad's house or my grandma or anybody like that and go, just so you know, we had sex last night and I was ovulating. You just wouldn't do it. So I'm not going to walk into work, or my mum's or my dad's or my grandma's or so on and so forth, and go, we basically had sex in a petri dish last night. It's, I don't know, I just think it's the same thing. And so for me, at this stage, for our first round, hopefully our only round, but for our first round, I'm not going to tell anyone. But that, again, is a personal choice. Some people want to tell people because they need that support. And I do think it is important that you ask for help, and that if you do need the support, you talk to people. Maybe it's best just to have a couple of confidants, and you kind of have, you know, you tell your best friend, or you tell your mum, or you have someone to talk to that's not your partner, because as fantastic as your partners are and as supportive as they may be, sometimes you just need an external comfort wall. In my experience, when telling my friends and family, I was very open about it. I came out of hospital after my laparoscopy and I found out that my tubes were blocked, and the first thing I did was ring my dad. And I think I was under general anaesthetic for my operation, and I think when I came round, I mean, they say it stays in your system for a little while, and that night is kind of a bit of a blur. Like, I felt a bit out of it near enough all night, and we walked out of the hospital and I was literally stood in front of the hospital, and I just thought, I need to ring my dad. And I rang my dad and he answered the phone and he said, how did it go? And I said to him, you know, it's not going to happen. I can't have children without IVF. Both of my tubes are blocked, and that's it. It's not going to happen. And he said he was sorry, and he didn't really know what to say, and he was so nice, and it really upset him. And then I rang my mum and I said the same thing, and my mum lives 200 miles away, and so she was really upset because she couldn't be here for me, and Marco's dad was just so supportive. And I think I got home that night and I put a post on Facebook, and I am not one to air my dirty laundry all over Facebook. I cannot stand it. I kind of decided from that moment that I was going to share that journey. I felt like there were too many people to tell, does that make sense? And I told my best friends and I told my family, my immediate family, and then after that I kind of got a bit fed up of saying the same thing. So what I said was, I'm aware a lot of people will question why I'm posting this, and many may mistake it as being for attention. Before you read this, please know I am not doing this for attention, nor do I want your sympathy. I've always been an open book and I've always been very honest about my experiences. What I want is for people to be aware of how common these things are, and for people in the same position as Marco and I to know that they can talk about it. Today I was in hospital and I had a laparoscopy as part of fertility investigations, and after years of being in excruciating pain where I cannot move, time being taken off work and hormones I can't control, looking for answers. I went in feeling extremely nervous of the unknown, having never been under general anaesthetic before and not knowing which outcome I wanted. Option A, there is nothing wrong and my symptoms are just unexplainable. B, there is something wrong and it's worst case scenario. Or C, somewhere in between. The surgery has left me in quite some pain. It has left me with nice incisions on my stomach, yay for rolls that cover them, and a great respect for the NHS for treating me with such care and dignity. Following the surgery, we found out that we cannot have children without IVF. I have really blocked fallopian tubes, which means even though I ovulate, an egg is never successful in reaching my uterus. For me to get pregnant naturally, it would take quite a miracle. It's no secret how much the idea of having children means to me, so it goes without saying how hard this is for me to digest. I'm very lucky to have a husband who's much stronger than I, who's so supportive and who is so understanding. We always knew this would be a struggle, but we didn't realise things would be this bad. We always thought it would be somewhere in between. For now, we will continue with our appointments, my endless blood tests and weigh up our options, however limited they may be. I have time on my side and I am grateful for that. As I said, I categorically do not want sympathy. There are people in this world who are far worse off than we are. We have our house, our dogs, our marriage, our careers and our friends and family, all of which we're very grateful for. However, I am hoping this will put an end to the hurry up and have children, it's your turn next, and that it will happen one day comments. All of which I know are meant with love and support, but now invoke a totally different feeling for us. I'm also hoping that the people who have gone through, are going through, or will ever have to go through what we are, know that they are not alone, that they can talk about it, and that it is absolutely not something to be ashamed of. As much as I feel it, and I'm sure these people do too, it is not failure, it is not uncommon, and it is not a taboo subject. I'm very lucky for a million other reasons, but I'm finding this a very hard pill to swallow, so I hope people understand why I've made this post. I made a Facebook post because I just thought then I kind of kill two birds with one stone. Everybody knows I've categorically asked people to stop asking me when I'm having children, and that is kind of the end of it. Everybody knows, and that's it. Doing that isn't for everybody, and I completely get that and completely respect that, and I think for a lot of people it's better to stay private, and that's fine. There is no right or wrong way of dealing with it, but for me, I just wasn't going to feel like I shouldn't be talking to people about it. If people feel uncomfortable, that's not my problem. It's as simple as that. But like I say, I felt really lonely and didn't know where to turn, so I kind of put it on Facebook almost in an attempt to find someone to talk to, and funny enough I found loads. I set up an Instagram account that was focused just on my fertility, and for me going public was the better option. Going public isn't everybody's bag, but it was mine, and I think it was the best way for me to deal with it, for me to get some support. I didn't know anybody who was going through it, and so by kind of putting it out there, I got responses from other people who wanted to talk, other people who hadn't spoken to anyone, or other people who had been through it but hadn't necessarily spoken to anyone. And I think for me, I was very lucky to have the support system that I did, but a lot of people don't have that. And I do think it's a very personal decision as to whether or not you go public or whether or not you just want to tell your friends, but that was my experience of telling people. I rang my family pretty much straight away, and I did feel quite ashamed. Like, I literally spent the next week sobbing all day, every day. While I was off work, it was just horrific. I'd just sit there and cry constantly. And I thought I was okay because I had so many visitors in that first week, because obviously I'd just come out of hospital, that your mind's almost taken off it, and you're talking about it to everyone, and everybody kind of makes light of it, and you're having conversations, and they're all, oh, I'll be there for you, and this, that and the other. And at that moment you're kind of surrounded by people that sitting there and crying isn't really, I say it's not an option, it's not, I just didn't, and my mind would be taken off it. Somebody from work would come around and we'd be talking about what was going on at work, what I was missing, or a friend would come around and we'd be talking about all these other things. We'd sit and watch a film, we'd watch a series, things like that. But it was as soon as they went, the door shut, Marco was at work and I was sat on my own, and that's when I found it really hard. And they were when I was glad I'd told people, because I had people to text and I had people to sit and speak to and just say, is it normal that I'm feeling like this? Like, I remember texting my dad saying, I just feel like I've lost something, I feel like I'm grieving. I think when you do tell people that you're struggling, whether or not you've actually been diagnosed with anything, or whether or not you're still in the early stages, if you like, and you're getting past the point where, okay, we've been trying for quite a few months now, we're coming up to a certain point, and you know, it might be 6 months, it might be a year, and you're thinking, okay, things aren't going to plan here, something isn't normal, this isn't right, and all these thoughts are starting to go through your head. I do think there are a lot of benefits from talking to someone, like, not necessarily just your partner, I mean like branching out and talking to someone that isn't inside just you and them, because you get it off your chest, you talk to someone, and although they might not say the right thing and what you want to hear, although what do you want to hear really, it's better to have support than none at all. And I get it's frustrating when you're sat there and you're telling your friend about all these things and they're going, oh, just relax, it'll happen. One thing you need to remember is that the natural human response is you give someone a problem and their response is let me fix it. So by you saying to someone, we're trying to get pregnant and it's not happening, I'm struggling to get pregnant, we've been trying for this amount of time and I've not fallen pregnant, their response is, oh, I'm sure if you just relax and try not to think about it. They don't know what to say, so in their head that's fixing it. Or they say things like, I don't know, I'm trying to think now and I'm on the spot, but they say things like, oh, well, my brother's wife was really struggling to get pregnant and they started taking these supplements and they fell pregnant within a couple of months. Or they went and she had a load of acupuncture and she fell pregnant pretty much straight away. Or my cousin was struggling to get pregnant and she drank raspberry leaf tea and chewed on nettles and put lavender up her bum and rubbed sage all over her face, and there she was pregnant. They're only trying to be helpful, and a lot of the time people do say things that are inconsiderate, that they don't mean to be inconsiderate and they don't mean to be hurtful, but they do. And like I say, their natural response is to try and fix it and to try and be a good friend and give you the answer to your problem, if you like. And although it doesn't always work, you know they're trying, and sometimes it is okay to say to them, look, I don't need any advice, I've got my doctor for that, but I just need you to listen to me. I just need you to listen to me rant and tell me that you support me. And I think that is one of the benefits of telling people that, you know, people always say to you about your mental health, oh, it's okay to talk, and whenever people talk about mental health, they talk about talking to people, and people forget how much of an impact infertility does actually have on your mental health. And so it is important that you do that. And even if you just talk to somebody every now and again, it gets it off your chest, and it is really draining and it's really lonely, and there's an awful lot that comes with being infertile. So, in my humble opinion, I think there's more pros than cons when it comes to telling people you're struggling. but pick who you tell wisely. That really is serious advice there. Pick who you tell wisely. If you don't want to go public and you don't want to speak openly, you don't want to sit and vlog on YouTube, you don't want to run a blog, you don't want to talk about it all over Instagram, fine. But if you're going to tell all your friends, pick who you tell wisely. I tell you for why. Some people react really well and some people do just try and support you. Some people come back with the let me fix it response. Some people kind of go to the complete extreme, and some people just refuse to even mention the word baby around you, and things just become awkward, especially when they've got kids, and it kind of turns into an elephant in the room. Other people will be really sensitive. Other people are arseholes. Some people won't change the way they are around you at all, and they won't be sensitive at the fact at all. And so you've got one extreme of people who won't even mention the word baby around you, to suddenly you've got people who still want to shove photos of their child down your throat and, oh, look how cute she looked here, oh, look how cute she looked here, oh, look at this, look at all this dribble coming out of her mouth, oh, she had a really explosive poo this morning. You know, you get those people who just do not stop, and they are relentless with it, and they're not doing it on purpose, they're just selfish. And they are the people that I struggle with the most. I think you kind of have to, and that's what I mean when I say bear in mind the people who you tell. If you know your friends and you know how your friends have handled other situations, and nobody can be mad at you for not telling them. This is a really personal thing, and if your friends become angry at you for not telling them, this is why I was saying earlier, would you tell people if you weren't struggling and you were just trying? Would you announce that you were trying for a baby? If not, then don't announce this. You're not doing anything wrong by not telling people. It's nobody's right to know. And so perhaps you just shouldn't. It's all really personal. But if you don't feel like you're going to get support from someone, then you don't need to tell them. It's as simple as that. For some people, talking to everyone and everyone is the best way of getting it out, and it's the best way of coping for them. That's how I cope. But if you're not like that and you cope by talking to a small amount of people or writing it down, then do that. But you have got to tell somebody at some point, and I really do advise that you tell at least 1 or 2 people that you can just confide in, because it is hard. It's really hard and it's really lonely, and whether that person's a stranger, whether that person is in a support group, whether that person is your mother, your auntie, your auntie twice removed, whatever, it's good to talk. And I really, 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 really think you should tell at least someone. So now I'm going to kind of cover just telling everyone. So I have chosen to do that for a multitude of reasons, but I have my blog, I have my Instagram account, I have this, and I think the reason I did that, I mean, the reason I went public in the first place was just kind of to get everybody to stop asking me when I was having children, but that was just my direct Facebook friends, and I don't really have just anybody on my Facebook. Like, I don't just have random people I went to school with that I don't speak to anymore. When I started talking about it on Instagram, I had an account that was just for fertility, because I didn't know these people, and I was having a look at other people's journeys and getting support from a bunch of strangers, which was great because nobody could judge me, and if they did judge me, I didn't care. But there's so many people. There is a huge TTC community on Instagram and Facebook, so that's kind of where I started on there, because I just didn't know where to turn for support, and I found there was a lot of it on there, so I started being a bit more public about it there. But I never put a face to the account, and then it was about 6 months in and I decided to put a face to the account, and that was kind of just before my operation. And then after that I had another account, and I just kind of merged it all together, which is where Amber in a Teacup came from. I started my blog, and I just thought this is something I know a lot about. This is something I'm going through. This is something that I know an awful lot of people are going through. And this is something that I know that a lot of people don't know how to talk about. So for me, I just thought, well, sod it, I'll do it this way. I have so much to say that I thought, why not? Why not do it this way? And I think there are pros and cons to doing it. Like, if you are going to start a blog, for a lot of people, I think they do it because it's almost a bit like a diary. And it is like keeping a journal of your fertility journey, if you like. And so I think a blog for a lot of people serves that purpose. Oh my God, I thought I was going to knock the candle off then. Sorry, hun. Just setting the house on fire. Whoopsie. So some people do use it as a bit like a diary, which is great. And that's fine. However, if you are going to start a blog, but you are going to write posts about how your sister is really insensitive, or your mum isn't very supportive, or your brother's girlfriend is pregnant and you just want to shout and scream and swear at her because she doesn't deserve it because they've only been together 4 months but you and your husband have been trying 20,000 years. If you're going to use your blog, or you're going to use your public platform, if you like, to put posts like that out, use a pseudonym or do it anonymous. Don't name and all the rest of it, because if you're going to do a blog and you're going to put your name on it and you're going to share it, etc, 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 and then you write things like that, all you were doing is inviting trouble, and stress is not what you need at this time. So yeah, my advice would be, if you want to do it like a diary and you really want to have rants about people that could possibly see it, then I suggest you don't do it publicly. Do it publicly, but anonymously is what I mean. The other thing is, if you are going to go public and you're going to do it on, like, rather than, when I say go public, I don't just mean like tell everyone in your life that you know personally. I mean, if you're going to do it online, anything like that, do remember that you are open to opinions and that the internet can be a very horrible place. I remember a few weeks ago when the Huffington Post did an article and Marco and I were kind of the feature of that article, and they were talking about the removal of IVF on the NHS, and some of the comments on there were beyond insensitive, and some of them really got to me. And I think that is one thing that you need to remember, that whenever you put yourself in the public eye, you are open to criticism and you do not have a leg to stand on with people firing it at you. So you have got to bear that in mind. If you've not got very thick skin, going really public probably isn't the best idea. I think, you know, there's one thing starting a blog and sharing it with your friends and family, but if you are going to then market that blog out, just be mindful of that. It is quite a controversial subject. It's a subject that, especially when it comes to the NHS, everything to do with the NHS is bloody controversial because it comes to money and taxes and things like that. But also you've got to think IVF in some religions isn't alright. And infertility and fertility for a lot of people is a very private issue and they don't feel like it should be shared. I can't say I've faced too much criticism other than that one article. But you have got to be mindful of that. It's different for everyone. I think everybody has different ways of sharing their story. Everybody has different ways of coping. For me, I think talking about it is the better option because you need support. Infertility is such a lonely place. Like, it really is so lonely that if you're not going to talk about it, you're not going to get the help you need. And it's really sad. You could get a counsellor. If you don't want to talk to anyone, talk to a counsellor. Like, talk to somebody. Talk to me. And I do mean that. I think you only have to go on my Instagram, really, and there's a lot of girls that I talk to on Instagram who I've never spoken to before, but then since I came out with this story, they will message me and tell me their stories, and you kind of, you build friendships and you talk to girls you've never met about your periods, and it's all, I don't know, it's just, I get a lot of comfort out of it, and I think everyone should be able to talk to someone about everything, because it's a massive weight lifted off your shoulder. Like, I went out for afternoon tea with my friend today and we spoke about it, and just straight away it made me feel better that she asked. And that's it. If you don't tell anyone, eventually you just kind of go a bit crazy. Because people don't get it. People don't get why when you're in the supermarket and a baby is really crying, why you are even more irritable than most people about it. Or they don't understand why when Jill from HR announces that she's pregnant, they don't understand why you then go lock yourself in the toilet for 10 minutes and cry, because you haven't told anyone. And I do think it's a good thing. Like, telling your friends, for example, when it comes to baby showers and things like that for your friends, if you don't want to go, they may be that bit more mindful because they know. Whereas if you don't tell them, but there's a baby shower and it's one of your very good friends and you just keep avoiding going to all these different events, people are going to start thinking you're just rude, or that you've got a problem, or it's not really a great way to maintain a friendship. Whereas if these people really are your best friends, then you should be able to tell them things like this. And just talking just makes everything better. And nobody can tell me it doesn't, because I don't believe it. I really don't believe it. I talk to anyone who will listen about pretty much anything, and it always makes me feel better. I'm only one person, but there are so many benefits to talking to people. I think telling people you're infertile is probably the first step, and not necessarily I keep saying that you're infertile, and whereas I suppose for a lot of people watching this, you aren't infertile. Maybe you're trying to conceive and it's taking longer, you don't know, you're undergoing the testing, whatever, but because I'm infertile, that's what I say. So I'll rephrase that. Telling people that you are struggling to conceive, I think, is the first step. And I think there are so many benefits. There's pros and there's cons. You get some people that are really insensitive, you get people that aren't, you get people asking questions that you don't necessarily always want to answer, but then it's up to you how you respond. Which is why for some people they just want to tell a handful of people, but they should tell a handful of people because they're going to get support. Not everybody has to go about it the way I went about it and tell everyone. And a lot of the time I will just kind of tell anyone that will ask. Whenever anybody says to me, oh, are you and your husband going to have children? My response is, oh, I can't have children, so we're looking at IVF. Or I'd love to. And that's kind of, I'd love to, but things aren't that easy for us. Or I do just say, yeah, I think we're looking at IVF. Or I'll just say, yeah, one day. Depends who it is. Some people I don't feel the need to go into it. Other people I do. Some people really wind me up. I remember once there was a man at work who just kept going on and on and on about having children, etc, etc, etc. And he said to me multiple times a comment of, oh, well, if you had children you'd understand, or, well, when you have children I bet you see it differently, and this, that and the other. And I think at one point my response was, well, I can't, so I guess you're just going to have to put up with my opinions, aren't you? And at some point I just snapped. I felt a bit guilty about it. I did apologise. I think another benefit of telling people as well is that, especially with your parents that really want to be grandparents are lovely. Just in case my father-in-law watches this. But it's an added pressure, and I do think that when you tell them that you're having problems, they back off, and you need that, because there is nothing worse than constantly asking for grandchildren and you knowing that you are doing everything within your power to make that happen, but it's just not happening. So I do just think talking to people makes it better. Makes it so much better. Well guys, that's it from me today, so thank you so much for tuning in. I am sorry that this has been a bit down. I feel like this hasn't been the most energetic video ever, and I'm really sorry if you've picked up on my hormonal vibes. But I'm now going to chill with the Chinese, and that is going to be my night. But like I say, there's pros and cons to talking about it, but for me, I definitely think it's worth it. If you want support, you need to tell someone, and telling someone is the first step, and it always gets easier, I promise. But yeah, if you liked what you saw, please make sure that you like, that you comment, that you share, and please make sure that you subscribe. Turn those notifications on. No, definitely turn those notifications on. And I will see you next Saturday. Next Saturday I think we might have a look at alternative therapies. So that is something that I've been really into. So give it a go. Let us know what you think, and I will see you next week. Ciao!